Hi everyone, my name's Anthony Cummins. Now, I want to take you through what it would be like to be a samurai on a battlefield. Now, I've made this video in support of Book of the Samurai, and I'll tell you more about that at the end if you're still with us. So, what was it like to be a samurai on a battlefield? Right, you've got to imagine that you've left your estate behind. You've been on the road for 2 or 3 months. Now, you're out there, you're with comrades, you're with brothers, you're with, extended family members, you're with interconnected married families, you've got the Lord at the head of the army, there are banners everywhere, you can hear the clank and of armour, you can hear the dull thud of some of the armour that's had leather put over it, there's horses, there's smoke, there's a very medieval feel to the battle, campaign battle camp. You've been shadowing the enemy have been shadowing you, you've been vying for position over, leagues of land, you've been trying to get to the best position. Eventually, you've set up 2 battle camps not far away from each other. These are bamboo fences with ditches and earth embankments set up, tripwires, traps, there are watchfires on the outside. Each night as it goes totally dark, you can just see the fires of the camp going, and there's the big central fires, well, not central, they have basket fires on posts everywhere to try and illuminate as much as possible, but it is a very dark world that you would be in. Now, you know that tomorrow is the day of battle, so your armour is hanging up on a tree possibly, or on a stand near a fire. The smoke is covering it. This is so you can quickly get in it the next day, or you may have your man-at-arms there, but you've slept under what is a paper tent, and there's been a slight rain, and in the morning there's dew. It's very early, probably pre-sunrise, and you're waking up, you're getting ready. The troop that was on guard that night and have been on night attack duties come off duty. They won't be fighting today. They'll stay behind because that's what they've been doing each night. The shinobi no mono, the ninja, have come in from their scouting. They've told their lord exactly what's going on, the positions, but equally as well, the enemy shinobi have done the same. Now, your squire stroke man-at-arms is helping you put on the armour. You've got your spear carrier, you've got your horse if you're rich enough for a horse, and you make your way in procession down to the battlefield. Now, of course, people, the fast scouts are just launching down the road to get to see the enemy. However, they'll walk quite slowly past you and near the formation, then they'll just belt it and they'll go off, and they'll actually ride in zigzag formations. They don't ride straight on, they'll ride in zigzags, and sometimes some people will be at the side, will cross like this to check the area, make sure there's no ambushes to get your army before you've got there. You've arrived though on the battlefield. It's now, the sun is up, you're on the battlefield, you can see the army. Now, what happens now is something called the wave of fear, and the wave of fear takes hold. That means those who suddenly realise they're about to go to battle, and some of the servants, some of the less courageous samurai, start to move backwards and peel off or shift to the right, and you feel this wave of energy and movement shift the army, and you've got to make sure that keeps control, because otherwise it can break into a rout, and you actually get samurai forces who've routed and ran away before they've actually got there. But of course, a good army, a good general will keep this together. So what happens now is they start to form up the formations. They send out the flag, the flag commander. There are 6 major commanders, 2 of them are flag commanders. They'll be saying, I want that flag there, that flag there. These are markers that you go and set up on against with your formation, and they'll set the formation for the entire army. And everything will be double checked. You'll check your saddle is tight on, you'll check your stirrups are fine, everything is there. Check your sword, your daggers in, and then what you'll find is you'll have the yumi next to you. You'll have your bow will be held next to you with your spear. But first of all, they're going to send the ashigaru forward first. They're the foot soldiers, and they're with the musketeers as well. And they'll go up maybe bowman, musketeer, and they'll have someone in charge of them. And bit by bit, the 2 armies will creep towards each other. Drums will start to be sounding. And then what happens is when you get into range, they'll start firing off the bows. Wham! And you can hear it, wham! Then a bit closer, you'll get muskets. Boom, 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 boom. And then the arrows whistling through the air, and they'll start hitting each other. But this is mainly Ashigaru foot soldiers versus foot soldiers, and this will be, they'll start clashing in. Now then, as it gets closer, the call will be given, the signal is prearranged, and the Ashigaru and the musketeers break off left and break off right. And inside of that comes the arrow formation, with what technically should be one of the highest ranking or most prestigious warriors at the front to hopefully achieve Ichiban Yari, which is first spear. And in there, somebody hoping to achieve second spear, which is second person into the fray. So they start moving forward. Now, some manuals say that you beat the drum on this on the march. Boom, boom, boom. But what it does say in Book of Samurai, something what we've got to look into, is it said you've got to remove your mask and remove your skirts. They go off and go back to your servant to give you vision. Most likely because the mask is to stop arrows coming in, and there's too enclosed when you're actually up sword fighting. But of course the skirts are mainly for when you're on horseback. So a lot of mounted samurai will dismount at this point, and it's more of a status symbol, the horse, and they'll go in on foot. However, some areas of samurai life, or some areas in Japanese culture, preferred cavalry attacks. So that will depend on which samurai force is fighting. So now your samurai lined up, arrow formation. On the flanks are the archers and the musketeers marching with them. Boom, boom, boom. And suddenly the first Ichiban Yari, the first spear, they'll start announcing their names, and they'll, if they've got the bravery, they'll go in and clash, be the first one. And what people are actually watching to which one's spear goes in the lowest, because that means they were first, because people will try and block the spear down, and then they start to fight. And of course then you get side helpers who start to come in and maybe loose a bow, or they'll shoot with a gun, or they'll come in and start knifing to attack. But some samurai have held back, and they form groups of 2 or 3, and they'll run as killing parties. But now the drums are probably in total, you know, the advance is in full, and you'll start to smash into each other now. Now you're going to get carnage. You're going to get absolute carnage. People are going in with spears. Once they're too close, the spear will be dropped. Then you get to then you get to the sword striking, where they've drawn swords and they're smashing each other, pulling it down, trying to grab helmets. People are in the mud on the floor, and they might have to then ditch their sword and go to dagger, and they'll be cutting into the throat and pulling round, and blood will be spraying out, and they'll be trying to sever heads, but then helpers will be protecting them. But sometimes people sever the head. They have to be careful. If they put it down to the side, somebody else will grab it and pick it up and try and get away from it. If you've seen there's a nice sword there, or something that's clearly a high-ranking warrior, you'll take his sword and you'll put it, you put the head in your bag of heads, and you'll try and pass the sword back to your servant if possible, for identification. And what you do is you have this bag of heads, and the more people you kill, the more head you put in. And the army is now starting to break up into a mass slaughter. Here, this is when, you know, certain tactics will come in, and generals do different things, but one side will eventually win against the other one, and the other side will start to rout. Now, they have something called the dragon banner, and they will try and put that on a hill, because in tradition, the gods of war reside in high places, but realistically, it's so you can see the banner. Now, the banner's on the hill, the troops try to rally onto it, but your side is just too good. They keep smashing through them, and this then becomes half spear, which means they are trying to retreat backwards, and they're not fully engaged in it, and they're running and then turning and fighting. But there are some brave souls in the enemy, and they are called the Shingaru. This is the defensive rear troop. They will be stopping people from, you know, attacking too quickly while the rest retreat. The enemy is not such a great general. He's let it fall to pieces. He should have retreated with tactics, but he's not allowed it. So what's happened is, along the sides, the musketeers and the archers have started smashing in. They're like boom, 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 and as the enemy are collapsing, they're totally hammering them. People are trying to fight back with spears, but as I say, we're on half spear, so they're going down. Now it's an all-out slaughter there. You're trying to get as many heads as possible, and the #1 goal is to try to find the enemy leader and take his helmet, his head and his sword and his war baton, and you need to pull them back. But he's got loyal bodyguards, absolutely loyal bodyguards. Now, they're all crushing and fighting, and unfortunately the enemy general gets away. But what you find now is people are hiding out, people are, you know, trying to escape, and the army is now rounding them up and pulling back their heads. However, you shouldn't take too long, because there's only a certain amount of time before you can stop recording in what's called the Book of Heads. So you come all the way back and you have to line up, get into the different divisions, and you start to show who you've brought back, which samurai or which ranking they think it is. Now remember, you can tell by their teeth if they're quite high ranking. They've got blackened teeth with iron staining, but some of the blue teeth people or white teeth people, including some samurai I think, are lower class. They're lesser heads to take, and the record of who is Ichiban Yari, who was Niban Yari, that's our second spear, who did this, who was side assistant, that all starts getting recorded. So you've brought your heads, you've recorded them in the Book of Heads, and you come together in what's called the sort of inspection of the heads, and they pick a certain amount of heads, and the Taisho will sit there, the general will sit there in full armour, and there'll be archers with him to shoot at any enemy ghosts that appear. There'll be people practicing things like kuji and magic to get rid of the evil spirits, and it'll be done in a certain direction, and the enemy and your general, the allied general, will start to inspect the heads. Now, the book I was showing you at the beginning starts to tell you why that is, to bring people back together, to encourage bloodlust, to pull, unify, and also to stop people running away too quickly and too much. And now we're going to have cheers of AAO, victory cheers. There's going to be celebration, and there's going to be lots and lots, probably, of drinking, but probably, you know, they'll try and curb that. But they'll still have to fortify their position, because the enemy may be defeated, but they're not being totally crushed, so they may come back. Now the next bit will be up to the situation. Maybe the people will be returning from war, but or maybe they'll carry on to another part of the campaign. But in all, you've survived the battle. Somebody's had to find your katana or your tachi because you've dropped it. The servant's got your spear. You've still got your dagger. You were taking noses. You were taking ears. You were taking heads. But the heads got too many, so you had to ask for permission to take noses and ears. And they start to account it. Then, if you've captured any land or there's land to be given, the general will allot that land to the individual people, or depending on what status they got. Some of the lower foot soldiers may be promoted to samurai because they did so well. And overall, and some of the enemy warriors that were really high ranking will have their heads wrapped in their cape and put in special boxes, or the box is wrapped in a cape with an arrow through the knot, and their sacred prayers are said over this. Other heads are then put on not stakes, but sort of like scaffold, and you create a scaffold of heads, and they will then be put in a certain direction to rot, or you may bury them in a certain direction, and you know, to get rid of the ghosts, and certain prayers will be said, and then you'll return or carry on with the campaign. Right guys, that's basically an overview of like a morning samurai battle. Now the information comes from this, which is Book of Samurai. This is Natori Ryu. This is the first 2 scrolls of over 30 scrolls, so there's lots to look forward to. So if you're interested in samurai warfare in any way, or samurai battles, the information is all in there. Just go along and have a read and enjoy. Subscribe here, and I look forward to speaking to you next time, where maybe we'll do imagining what it's like to be on a ninja mission.